Welcome, friends. Grab your favorite cup of tea, coffee, or cocoa and settle in for Sips from the Sip from the Utica Institute Museum. Sips from the Sip is all about sharing the history of little-known people and places in Mississippi. We're serving up truth, justice, with a dollop of sass. I'm your host, Jean Green. Today's episode is the 31st of a multi-part series of readings and discussions from the book, Black Man's Burden. William Henry Holtzclaw was born in 1874 and raised in rural Randolph County, Alabama, to sharecropping parents. The Tuskegee graduate founded the Utica Normal and Industrial Institute for the training of colored young men and women in Utica, Mississippi in 1903, making it the first Little Tuskegee to be established in Mississippi. The Black Man's Burden, the autobiography of William Holtzclaw, published in 1915, made him one of the first black men to publish a book in Mississippi. Chapter 16 covers Holtzclaw's account of the first 6 years of the Utica Institute. Chapter 16. Just after this conference had closed, Dr. Henry E. Cobb of New York City, one of our leading trustees, requested me to give a full statement of what had been accomplished up to that time, April 1909, and I wrote him the following letter, which I take the liberty to give here, because it sums up well the work that we had succeeded in doing during the first 6 years of our labors. My dear Dr. Cobb, in reply to your letter of recent date, asking for a statement of the work of this institution, permit me to say that although we started here in a wilderness 6 years ago, with absolutely no capital, with no immediate friends, strangers amidst strange surroundings, our motives questioned on the one hand, and our ability to accomplish our object on the other, with nothing but hope founded on faith, we have gone steadily forward in the building up of an industrial educational institute similar to Hampton and Tuskegee until today. Our institution is among the most successful in this section of the South. In all our departments, industrial, academic, biblical, night and day school, we have enrolled 500 students this year and have employed 25 teachers and officers. Our teachers have been educated at some of the best schools in the country, North and South. Although we are careful not to neglect the academic work, our school is distinctly industrial, and among the industries, agriculture takes first rank. Domestic science, I believe, comes second. When I tell you that 95% of my people in the state of Mississippi are engaged in some form of agriculture, you will readily understand why we are careful to give accurate training in this particular subject. Other industries taught are carpentry, wheelwrighting, blacksmithing, sawmilling, and general lumber manufacturing, bricklaying and plastering, broom making, printing and bookbinding, dairying, stock raising, poultry raising, sewing and dressmaking, millinery, cooking, electrical engineering, laundering, and general housekeeping. Some of these industries, the sawmill for instance, are well equipped and are more than self-supporting, while the majority of them must still come under the infant industry class. On the grounds proper, there are 3 large buildings and 11 small ones. Out on the plantation, there is 1 large building surrounded by 30 cottages, farmhouses, barns, and so on. The farm proper, including timberlands, consists of 1,510 acres. The entire property is valued at $75,000, and I am happy to say that there is not 1 cent encumbrance on a single dollar's worth of the property. But our labors have not been confined to the building of a material institution. We have built our institution, as it were, in the hearts of the people. We have changed the condition of things so materially that it is difficult to describe the changes that have taken place. 6 years ago, the ownership of homes by my people was almost wholly unknown. It was difficult to find a Negro that had a home of his own with more than 2 rooms, regardless of the size of his family. Today's Negroes in the neighborhood own more than 3,000 acres of land, and many of them have erected comfortable cottages with from 3 to 5 rooms, having some pictures on the walls and some books on the shelves, as well as some flowers in the yard. You will better appreciate the value of the changes when I tell you that 6 years ago, some of the people were so vicious that all idea of evening services at the various churches had to be abandoned by the older people in order to keep their sons and daughters out of prisons and chain gangs. When a gathering was attempted at night, it usually resulted in a free-for-all fight in which revolvers and razors were used indiscriminately to the injury of some of the congregation and the imprisonment of others. It is gratifying to note that all this has nearly passed away at Utica. In practically all the churches, the services are orderly and are held night or day at the will of the worshipers. No blind tiger whiskey is sold about the churches now, and many of the congregations compare favorably with audiences I have seen in more enlightened sections of the country. 6 years ago, there were men and women living together as man and wife and rearing children without the semblance of a legal tie, but I'm glad to say that public sentiment has so changed that it has compelled the discontinuance of these illegal and degrading practices. All the persons living together illegally were made to marry by due forms of law or leave town, and they are now happier. The former state of things could not exist here now. Not only would the colored people themselves refuse to tolerate it, but the white officers of the law would not permit it. All this measures, though very inaccurately, the work we have helped to accomplish during these 6 years outside of what might be expected of an ordinary school. Now, just a word about how we have done it. We organized ourselves into what we called extension workers. Then we divided the local territory into as many divisions as there were teachers in the faculty, assigning a given division to each worker. All the time that was not spent in the actual work of the school was spent among the people. Once a month, the teachers would meet in our chapel and compare notes, and once a year, all the people in the various divisions were brought together for a conference and for general instructions. We learned of them, and they learned of us. The work has been enlarged until this year. The whole county of Hinds, a section of territory equal to the state of Rhode Island, is under the practical moral charge of the 25 teachers of our school. We shall further enlarge the scope of the work from year to year. The results of this extension work have impressed every one of our friends that has visited the school. When Dr. G.S. Dickerman of New Haven, Connecticut, secretary of the John F. Slater Fund trustees, visited us about a year ago, his parting remark to me at the little station was, "What impresses me most about your work is not what you have done at the school, but what you have done in this community." Dr. Bradley Gilliam of Boston, formerly for many years pastor of the Church of the Unity at Springfield, Massachusetts, who paid us a visit last October at the time of Dr. Booker T. Washington was here, has written me the following letter. My dear Mr. Holtzclaw, among many incidents of my recent trip through the South with Dr. Washington, nothing is more firmly or agreeably stamped upon my memory than is my visit to your school at Utica. What I saw there gave me every assurance of your success. What I said to you there, I repeat now, namely that such good work and results as you show at Utica, you being a graduate of Tuskegee, is a veritable guarantee of the wisdom and worth of the Tuskegee method. I hope that you will go on with great courage and that you will find ample support for your work, which richly deserves support. The solution of the Negro problem, by true education, is the only solution, and my visit to the South made me more hopeful of results than I was before. It may also interest you to note what Dr. Washington himself thinks of my efforts. He says, "It was my privilege to visit Utica, Mississippi, and to see something of the work of the Utica Normal and Industrial Institute, of which Mr. William H. Holtzclaw is principal, in October 1908. I cannot speak too cordially of the effective way in which Mr. Holtzclaw and his co-workers are attacking the problems presented to them. The school is located in a section where it has an opportunity to do effective work among the Negro people. Mr. Holtzclaw is deserving of the encouragement and support of all who may become interested in the work he is doing in Utica." William Holtzclaw, Principal. It has always been my policy to keep the school out of debt and property unencumbered. At the end of the school year, if I did not have quite sufficient funds to meet all our obligations, I have appealed to Negro friends and then to the whites, and have resorted to many devices for raising money among my own people in order to keep the institution out of debt. Thank you for tuning in for Sips from the Sip. Joining me next time to discuss Chapter 16 will be Mr. Gerald Collins. Mr. Collins is electronics engineering and technology instructor in the CTE division on the Utica campus. The Utica Institute Museum is dedicated to expanding knowledge of the history of Utica Institute and its role in Southern Black education. This program is supported by donations from our listeners. If you enjoy learning about the history of William Holtzclaw, the Utica Institute, and Mississippi, consider donating. To support Sips from the Sip and all the work at the Utica Institute Museum, visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Utica Institute. Until next time, this has been Jean Green coming to you from the heart of the Sip.